Hi, Professor Stan. This is Johnny. Today I'm going to talk about how the housing cost burden going to affect the first marriage age in Hong Kong. So for the time limitation reason, I'm going to skip the background part and jump into the hypothesis. So here is how we define our housing cost burden. We use the change of the house unit price divided by the change of real income per capita to represent the toughness for people to get a shelter, and then how this toughness to get a shelter can affect the first marriage age in Hong Kong. Here are 6 possible alternative hypotheses. First is tertiary education rate. Second is change of conventional thinking and the reduced social time, and also the legislation on marriage age and the sexual orientation, and also people can choose rent apartments for marriage instead, or live with parents after getting married. Here we just found omitted variable bias, which is people might choose rent apartment for marriage. So while we're thinking about this omitted variable bias, we have to think whether our housing cost burden can be representative to show the toughness for those people who alternatively choose to rent apartment for marriage. So here we just find two graphs. The first one on the left shows the house price, and the second on the right shows the rent price. So we can see those two graphs, the price of the rent and the price of the house is quite strongly positive proportional. So if this is the situation, I can say that the housing cost burden can be partially, I think I can most partially represent the toughness for the people to rent apartments for marriage. So that's how we tackle this omitted variable bias. So secondly, we find a selection bias, which is the income of married couples. Because while we are using the housing cost burden, we just made a really large circle, which included the income of the whole population. You can see the change of house unit price divided by the change of the real income per capita. So here the change of real income per capita just included the whole population's income. So how we tackle this selection bias? We just narrowed down the study group to the age group under 44 years old. Because why we choose 44 years old as the figure? Because from the data we just looked up, the age group under the 44 years old can can include the 90% of married population. So that's why we choose the 44 years old. So those two graphs I just made from the authentic data, not I just made up, just fake up. Okay. And here's the part of operationalization. To choose mean or median, and income measured by what unit or instrument will be best optimized for minimum bias, to use households' individual income to investigate the marriage age of male or female, to use disposable income or real income. So we choose median outweigh the mean, because while we're choosing the median, we can avoid income polarization, as the Gini coefficient in Hong Kong is comparatively high. So when the distribution is not that symmetric, I believe the median is more representative than the mean. Here's the data we just find about the median monthly household income for domestic households from 1981 to 2016. And also I made a graph about the median age at the first marriage by sex in selected years. So when finally we just gather all the data together, so we can find the data from 2011 to 2018, which is only six figures we can find. So we can see on the left graph, the first is a correlation about the first marriage age and the housing cost burden. We can see it's not that correlated, because we can see here, while the housing cost burden is quite low and it's even negative, but people still choose to get married at quite old age. So also on the right part, the correlation is also quite scattered. But alternatively, we change the housing cost burden into the wage growth rate under 44 years old. We can see the correlation is quite strong. The higher growth rate of income, the younger people will choose to get married. So while we find it's not that correlated of our initial hypothesis, we keep looking for some data. So here is the graph we find at the Midland property price chart, which is the relationship between the house price to income ratio and the property index. So those two variables are quite correlated, and I can see it's even parallel. You can see the whole trend is quite parallel. So I think we should keep looking for more data to enlarge our the time range for our investigation, to see whether the first marriage age and the housing cost burden is correlated. Okay, that's all. Thank you.